Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to breakfast in the class. It's so good to have everybody here, the people that are near, the people that are far, the people that are sitting all the way against the back wall, Charles. It's good to see you. I'm going to get my telescope for next time. You sat all the way in the corner in the ladies' table. I love it. Fadal, you're always welcome. Join us. We should be Zocheh Be'ezat Hashem. Kabetz Hashem. Hashem should bring us back. La'achok v'la'karov. Those that are far and those that are near. Breakfast in the class dedicated to Loving Memory Nishmat Amelia Bat Mordechai Hanolad Min Malka Eshet Simon. On her yahrzeit, may her holy neshama have the highest aliyah shamayim, donated by her granddaughter Miriam Izakashvili. Week of breakfast in the class dedicated for a speedy and complete refuah shema for Abud Ben Fortuna, his parents Zuri and Fortuna. Breakfast in the class dedicated for refuah shema for Eliyahu Shimon Ben Azal Fortuné and Eliyahu Ben Chava. Learning for this week is dedicated by the Daniel S. Loeb, Torah Saint Diamond Don, and loving memory Lishmat, Solomon Murciano's mother, Felicia Bat Miriam Murciano, by the Murciano family. And the week of Cobra was sponsored by David E. Ash. And the week of breakfast in the class sponsored by Stephen Galapo, dedicated for speaking for Hashemah for his dear friend Rafael Yaish Ben Hana V. Yosef. And the year of breakfast in the class also dedicated to loving memory Lishmat, Ruth Orfali Batadella, sponsored by her family. I do want to say one thing, something that I mentioned briefly on Shabbat. We learned a very special lesson when we left Egypt, and that is B'schut Nashim Tzidkaniyot, in the merit of the righteous women, Nigalu Avotenu Mitzrayim. Our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. This idea that for redemption to happen, we need the zechut of the women is very, very relevant today. And that was really what brought me to my earlier comment is I wanted to point out, Charles, what a zechut it is to have Debbie always, Nashim Tzidkaniyot, she's almost never not with us for praying. And there's like 2 or 3 ladies in the whole ladies section on a Friday night, but consistently, Debbie is there, B'schut Nashim Tzidkaniyot. Consistently, Adina we have praying in the ladies section, B'schut Nashim Tzidkaniyot. It is the prayers of the women and their zechuyot that will ultimately bring us that redemption. So we should be Zocheh Be'ezat Hashem, see it nowadays. Okay, let's begin. My friends, I want to share with you a fascinating thing. First, I want to share with you a Ramban, Nachmanides. And then I want to share with you a very beautiful passage from the Arizal. I mean, it's not beautiful at first glance, but I think it's beautiful once we learn the beautiful lesson that's hidden inside of it. The Ramban writes as follows: Vida, a person should know, Ki Avraham Avinu, chata chet gadol b'shgaga. Avraham did a big sin by mistake. Anyone here ever hear anyone writing that Avraham did big sins by mistake, on purpose? Anyone? Avraham did a big sin, the big Sadiq Avraham Avinu. Says the Ramban, he did it by mistake. But we can never say this. But what does Ramban say Avraham's big mistake was? Shehevi ishto asadeket b'michshol avon mipnei pachdo pen yargu. His wife was put in a very difficult circumstance in the story of going down to Egypt, where he had to hide her in a box, where she was taken as a hostage to the house of Paro. She was in a very difficult spot because Avraham Avinu was worried that he and she would be killed. V'hayalo liptoach, and Avraham Avinu should have had bitachon b'Hashem and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sheyasil oto ve'et ishto, that Hashem would save him and his wife, ve'et kol hashelo, and everything that he had. Ki yesh be'elokim koach la'azor u'la'atzilo. What a beautiful line. For there is power enough in God to help and to save him even when the chips are down. So my friends, this idea that Ramban is putting forward is a shocking concept. Avraham Avinu, in going down to Egypt and putting his wife in that situation, did a big sin by mistake. He thought that that's what Hashem wanted from him. That's how he understood. To put her in the box, hide her, say she's his sister. It was a mistake, but it was a big sin, says Ramban. Now, first of all, let's try to understand those words. How could you say it's a big sin and also say it's a mistake? If it's a mistake, it's not a big sin. The answer is, it's not true. A sin that a person makes by mistake is also a problem. In fact, during the time of the Beit HaMikdash, what would people do? A person would go to the Beit HaMikdash and bring a Korban Chatat. What was a Korban Chatat brought for? Only for sins that you did b'shogeg. So when you do a sin by accident, by mistake, what's the sin? What's the sin, Mark? It's by accident. But it's an accident. It did happen, 100%. But if I had an accident, right, then you can't say that I'm responsible for it. And if I am responsible for it, then it's not an accident.
You should have known. It's not a news. It's not like just happened. You weren't aware that today was Shabbat or that so you should have known.
So what do you want? But I didn't know.
Well, so you have to do something to make up for it.
But what do you mean? But I didn't know. What did I do wrong if I didn't know? You said the right words.
We didn't spend enough time.
You were bad influence on the society for one.
Wait.
We didn't spend enough time learning it before.
Oh, so what you said, Doc, and what you're saying now, Friday, right? is Mr. Friday, is very powerful. In every accident, in every mistake, there's also a certain level of responsibility. Because you should have known. Because you should have been careful. Because you could have learned. Because you could have asked. So as an example, you have a guy, he's driving 50 miles an hour in a 25 miles an hour zone. Shema Yisrael. By the way, Ya'ani. I never grew up in Brooklyn. I don't even have a connection with Brooklyn. I never grew up there. I never lived there. I go to visit. I can't find parking. I leave. I go home. But there's one thing that makes me hate Brooklyn. You know what makes me hate Brooklyn? No. Ocean Parkway, speed cameras. You could walk faster than you're driving when you get a ticket. Last night, went for a wedding, got a ticket. I believe I was going 26 miles an hour. I got more than one ticket. By the way, all I want to say is, if you ever want to feel like a celebrity, like you have paparazzi taking pictures of you chasing, just drive 26 miles an hour down Ocean Parkway. You'll get tickets from Z all the way till A. I know someone should do that, by the way. We should sponsor someone driving 27 miles an hour from the top of Ocean Parkway to the bottom, just to see how many tickets you'd get. I don't think we were.
You can't say it on video, but I can. Go Trump.
The views that are expressed in this recording. Okay. My friends, Avraham Avinu makes a mistake, but it's a mistake that he shouldn't have made. You drive 50 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour zone, and then all of a sudden someone jumps out into traffic.
But he mixed it again.
So he should not have jumped out. He should not have stepped out from between parked cars, but it's my fault. Why? Because if I was driving 25, like the speed limit suggests, I would have been able to stop fast enough to not hit him. So it's true, it's an accident. But every accident, every mistake carries within it an element of responsibility. And that's why you bring Korban for Shogeg. So what did Avraham Avinu, even though it's a mistake, what did he do wrong? In not having bitachon, what did he do wrong? I have a second question. There's a follow-up question here. Ready? How could it be that Avraham Avinu made this mistake? When it came to a furnace of fire, what does Avraham do? He just asked him, is the door push or pull? Like, you know. He goes right in. Why was Abraham Avinu not afraid of the furnace of fire? And he's afraid. Wait. If God's going to save you there, He's going to save you here. So I'm going to give you one simple answer. First answer is, Abraham Avinu did not know that he was going to be saved in the furnace of fire. He thought he might die, but because it was a question of Avodah Zarah, he said, Yehareg v'al Yavor, whatever happens, happens. It's not my problem. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to believe, follow the ways of Hashem. If they kill, it kills me, it kills me. Here, Avraham felt like maybe he could do something. That's a simple answer. But I want to share with you the answer of the Arizal. How could it be that Abraham Avinu made a mistake? How could it be that the man who was willing to walk into the furnace of fire is all of a sudden trying to figure out, should I put her in my hand luggage? Should I put her in a box? Should I say she's my sister? My friends, it would seem that Avram was afraid of Paro. You know what my problem is? Later on, we read about Abraham Avinu. And in fact, the Seder Hadorot tells us that on the day that Abraham Avinu was born, they saw a shooting star, the astrologists. And they saw that shooting star was overtaking 4 stars. And they read that to mean that he was going to take over 4 kings. Later on, we read about the story about the 4 kings and the 5 kings. 5 kings do battle against 4 kings. The 4 kings are more powerful. The 4 kings win the 5 kings. Can I ask you a question? If Abraham Avinu is not afraid of 4 kings, how is he afraid of 1 king? How's he afraid of the people of Misraim? So I want you to hear the words of the Arizal. The Arizal says that before Abraham Avinu got to Egypt, and after he left Egypt, Abraham Avinu was on the level that he was on. But once Abraham Avinu came to Misraim, which is a place of such tum'ah, of such zuhama, in that space, af hu hurad min madregato, Abraham Avinu's level also dropped. In a place of such tum'ah, of such impurity, of such adultery, of such idol worship, Abraham Avinu's level also dropped because of the place he was in. And the mistake that he made for Abraham Avinu happens because of that. Now, let me be clear. The Arizal is not talking about the Ramban's question. What's the context of the Arizal? The Arizal says, it's a very interesting thing. Abraham Avinu, when he reaches Egypt, all of a sudden he says, when he started to get close to come to Egypt, Vayomer el Sarai ishto, he said to Sarai, his wife, Hine na yadati, now I know, ki esh isha yifat mar'eat. Now I know that you are a woman of great beauty. Rashi says on the spot, what do you mean now you know? You've been married to this woman for a long time. Only now do you know she's beautiful? Rashi says, Mishum tziniut, because of the tziniut in both of them. What does that mean? He didn't look at his wife because of the modesty that they had? She wore a burqa with a male slot? That cannot be. How do I know that cannot be? The Gemara in the Kiddushin says, Asur le'adam le'kadesh, person cannot be mekadesh a woman ad shirena, till he sees her. So he had to at least have seen her one time. He knows how beautiful she is. Why is he saying, oh, now I know? The Arizal explains that for all this time, when Abraham Avinu looked at Sarai Imenu, he didn't see a supermodel. He saw tzaddiket. And what do you think of when you think of a tzaddiket? You think of challah class, challah bakes, and berachot parties, and tefillah, and Torah, and the Hilchot, the Taharat HaBayit. You think of all of the wonderful, beautiful mitzvot that a woman is capable of doing in this world. But for the first time, Avraham Avinu saw her in a context of beauty, in a context of desire. Why? Says the Arizal. Why? Because he was in Mitzrayim. And the air of Egypt, and the cirque and the sviva, the environment was one that was so low that Avraham Avinu, although he didn't sink to where they were, his level came down from where it was. My friends, if that's true, in Hine Nayadati, now I know, Ki Eshet Yifat Mareat, if it's true about that element, it's also true, perhaps, about the element of bitachon. So when Avraham Avinu is all by himself, he'll go and fight 4 kings, no problem. When Avraham Avinu is all by himself, he'll run into a Kivshan Ha'esh, no problem. But when Avraham Avinu is in Egypt, what happens? Avraham Avinu is not Avraham Avinu. The Mishnah and Avot already teaches us this idea. A person should sell everything they have and be goleh and go to a makom Torah, to a place of Torah. Gemara says that they tried to woo Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha to come to live in a city. And he said to them, even if they gave me all the gold and all the silver, any dar, I would never live only in a place of Torah. Why is he saying that? On a simple level, you look at this statement of the Tanaim and you think, oh, he's saying that because he wants access to a yeshiva, he wants to have a chavruta, he needs Torah classes, he wants minyanim, mikvaot, fantastic, everything, yashan, bakery, chalav Yisrael. On a simple level, you think that the tzaddik wants to not be in a place of only of Torah because he wants it for the positive. But actually, we learn that one of the greatest Tanaim that ever lived, his wife convinced him to move to a place where there was no Torah. Anyway, he goes up to the Sefer Torah to read, after being without his rabbi friends, without his yeshiva, without his bet midrash. And he starts to read the Torah and he says, instead of HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, he says, HaHaresh Haya Libam. Their heart was deaf. And then he realizes how far he's fallen from being one of the greatest scholars that could never forget anything. He can't even read correctly. My friends, many of us have way too high of an opinion of our resilience. Now, in Israel, Yishtabach Shemo, Hashem has blessed us with this incredible thing called the Iron Dome. What a beracha from Hashem. But what are we seeing? That when Iran, Yemach Shemam v'Zichram, is sending 200 missiles, what happens to the Iron Dome? Overwhelmed. So you could get that missile and that one, but all the ones that fall in open areas. By the way, what's open area? You know, everything's falling in open areas. How many open areas are there in Israel? You ever been to Israel? Open area doesn't mean that it fell out in the middle of a field somewhere. It might mean that it fell in the middle of a street, but it's not a busy street. That's an open area. And we're seeing what that means. So when the Iron Dome is overwhelmed, the system has to decide, I have X number of missiles. Which missile do I want to take out? And eventually what happens? Some get through. Are we clear? My friends, you move into a sviva, into a place which is tameh, which is not a place of Torah, no worries. Of course, when that first missile comes towards you, saying Avodah Zarah, saying Yetzer hara, saying arayot, saying not kosher. Of course, you send the missile, you knock out that one, you knock out that one, you knock out. But eventually, what happens? Your system's overwhelmed. How much can you fight? How many things can you knock out? Eventually the system gets overwhelmed. I want everyone to take a look at this and understand that what the Arizal is telling us is that Avraham Avinu was influenced. And if what we're seeing in Ramban is saying that Abraham made a mistake, his level of emunah dropped. I'm suggesting maybe the answer to Ramban's point is because of the Arizal. But that means that Avraham Avinu's emunah was rock solid everywhere else. He went to a place. What happened? He lost his Avraham Avinu edge. Even if it's Bishogeg. You know the end of that Ramban? Ramban says, Gam yisiato min haaretz, the fact that he left Israel in the first place, shenistaveh alav b'techila b'pnei ha'ra'av, he came to the land that God told him to come to. Now there's a ra'av ba'aretz, there's a famine in the land. Ha'avona shehata, that was a sin, that he left Israel and he went. It was a sin to leave in a famine. What? Ki ha'elokim b'ra'av yifpedenu mimavet. God would have saved him from the famine in Israel. I could never say this, but I'm reading you Ramban straight. And for this action, that Avraham Avinu left El Haaretz Asher Hareka, even though there was a famine, Nigzar al Zar'o Hagalut Be'eretz Mitzrayim V'yad Paro. The Gezerah of Galut in Egypt was Nigzar on Avraham Avinu because he left for the famine down to Egypt. My friends, I want to just make that Ramban a little bit more juicy for a second. If it does sounds like it's not juicy enough for you, I'm going to give you a double fruit, what is it? Double mint. Double your refreshment. Why does Abraham leave? Vayibarav ba'aretz. Ramban is telling us, for Avraham Avinu on his level, that's a mistake. He should have stayed there. He should have felt Hashem's going to sort this out. You ready for this? This is crazy. You left Israel to go to Egypt because of a famine. The galut that is nigzar on his children, in what way does it happen? In exactly the same way. They are also in a famine in Israel. And where do they have to go? They have to go down to Egypt. Wild. What happened with Sarah? That someone was taken hostage by the house of Paro? Happens again. Shimon and then Binyamin, taken hostage. So they're reliving this experience. But my friends, I want to suggest that this is what it means in the Mishnah when it says, Al ta'amin ba'atzmecha ad yom motecha. Don't believe in yourself until the day that you die. Now, I know that that's not conventional wisdom. We're always talking about how a person has to have belief in himself, right? We know it's a very Jewish concept to believe in yourself. Believing in yourself does not mean that you also do not believe in yourself. Believing in yourself means that I believe in my kochot. I believe in my powers. I believe in my capabilities. I believe in my strength. I believe in my courage. I believe in my resilience. I do. But do I believe I'm perfect? Do I believe I'm impervious? Do I believe that any influence in the world is not going to be strong enough? Do I believe that there's no one bigger or better or smarter or more persuasive than me? No, I don't believe that. If Avraham Avinu had to be careful from Mitzrayim. How much more so little people like me and you? So my friends, it used to be that you needed to go to Egypt to be influenced by Egypt. But now Egypt's in my pocket. Now Egypt is on demand. Now Tum'ah is always accessible, travels with you. Now Kfirah, Apikursut, travels with you. My friends, the Iron Dome can only shoot down so many missiles. A person has an obligation, a responsibility, that just like you could take Mitzrayim with you, you could also take Eretz Israel with you. Everywhere you go. You could take Torah with you everywhere you go. I was thinking to myself, maybe this is what we mean when we say in the Shema that a person has an obligation to learn Torah. It's not just that God says, listen, I want you to learn in the morning, I want you to learn at night. I want you to learn when you lie down, I want you to learn when you get up. I want you to learn when you go, I want you to learn when you live at home. Maybe Belech Decha B'derech means that there's an entirely different purpose of the Torah that you learn when you're on the road. It's so that even when you're on the road, you're not on the road. You're not in China on a business trip or in Las Vegas. She biflage. You know, a lot of people have to go on these, they have these big shows. I'm not talking about entertainment. I'm talking about the shows for technology, for clothing. You know, this is where the big shows are. They have them in Las Vegas, they have them other places. Is there a lower place on earth than Las Vegas that proudly calls itself Sin City? If Avraham Avinu in Egypt was there, found his level faltering, coming short, says the Arizal, then what about me and you? What are you going to do to make sure that you bring Yerushalayim to Vegas? That you bring Yerushalayim on a business trip? That when you're walking in the streets of the city at work and you're surrounded by Tum'ah, you know, it's not just piritzut and inappropriate images this size. Flipping the size of Og Melech HaBashan. You need to see a woman without clothing on, 90 feet tall, in Times Square. That's what you need to see. Friends, who told you it's a mitzvah if you need to walk from the 50s to the 40s that you have to walk down that street? Who said? You know how many signs there are in Times Square? You know how many signs and things there are on Madison Avenue? And if you walk on Park, you see nothing? You're so confident that nothing's going to get through? You're so sure? Says the Arizal, on some level, for Avraham Avinu something got through. You better than Avraham? I know I'm not. This idea that a person, we should be willing to admit and understand and accept that we're human beings and we have weaknesses and we make mistakes. And my fault, it's not my fault that I made a mistake, but it's my fault that I put myself in a situation where people make mistakes. So my friends, I want to ask every person who's listening to this, what shield can you place around yourself to ensure that you're surrounded with Kiddusha no matter where you go? What book are you going to bring with you so that that's what you're doing on your phone instead of whatever else? You know how many Sfarim you could get on your phone today? By the way, just a public service announcement. Rabotai, there's an app called Safaria. A lot of people use it, has tremendous amount of Torah on it. You must be very careful with Safaria. Yesterday, I pulled up, someone needed to say Kaddish. I pulled up Kaddish. And as I'm scrolling down from the Kaddish, it brings a comparison to the prayer, to whatever the Lord's Prayer, and it's quoting from Matthew and Luke, from the New Testament. My friends, you understand what I just said? This is not run by Orthodox Jews.
Yes, it is. It's just not critical.
It is not run completely by Orthodox Jews. Understand that. It is a pluralist, it's run by pluralist Jews that allow for lots of different viewpoints to be able to be there. But understand that when you're there, you always need to be cautious about what it is that you're seeing.
Al Torah is clearly run by Orthodox.
Al Torah is 1,000%. There was another group of people that started something called Merkava at the time. Also, Orthodox Jews. And by the way, I'm not telling you not to use Sefaria. I'm not telling you not to use it. I'm just telling you, be aware that I pulled up Kaddish Al Yisrael, and next thing I know, I'm reading Matthew. Okay? So just like I told you, a person needs to be aware, because if you put yourself in a situation, you might make a mistake. What book are you going to have open that you're going to read on your phone? What book are you going to put with you in your bag so that that's where your head should be when you're on a business trip or you're on vacation? Who are your friends in what's it called? That you're going out with to eat, to spend time with? Who's your sviva? Because the sviva of a person can have such an impact on a person that you could never have imagined. May Hashem bless us to be able to constantly be in a makom Torah. But I want to give you a bigger beracha. And Doc, you're going to love this. May Hashem bless us to be people that create, that ensure that wherever we go is a makom Torah, even if it wasn't before we got there. May Hashem bless us, Be'ezat Hashem, to be part of that. Please, my friends, last and final request. If you did not vote today, you have no excuse in the world not to vote. It is an obligation to go out and vote. I believe it's a Torah obligation to go out and vote. If you did not vote, figure it out. People tell me, Rabbi, I don't know what to do. It's difficult. I have to go to Brooklyn. I have to go to Deal. I have to go wherever. I don't care where you have to go. If you leave early, you leave work early for Shabbat, you leave work early to do other mitzvot, you have to leave work early to go vote. Figure it out. There should be not one person in our community that has not taken the hishtadlut that God gave us in this amazing country called America, that we are so thankful to God that if we're not in Israel, which we pray to go to every single day, that we should be in a place like this, a Malchut Shel Chesed, where we have the opportunity to influence our own future. Not a single person in this community should turn around at the end of this day and say, you know what, I wanted to, I didn't have time. There's nothing more important. Be'ezat Hashem, we should be zochet to see Yeshuot v'nechamot, the coming of Mashiach, v'merav yameinu. By the way, I just want to make sure it's clear, however much you like him, Donald Trump is not Mashiach. Just to be clear.
The best man wins.
Lech Baderech is excellent also. Yes, fantastic. Hazaku Baruch Rabotai. Rabbi Chanina ben Akasha Omer,